everybody doing this morning? Everybody doing well? Hey, my name is Josh Turner. I'm the student ministries pastor here, and man, I'm excited to be with you guys here this morning. And before I get started, I always want to thank Pastor Stovall and Carrie for giving me this opportunity to come up here and share with you guys. But before we get started, I want you to look in your seat, and I want you to pick up this flyer that said, God did it. Here's what we're excited about at Celebration Church. What God has done in all of your lives. This is just since January. So this is the first quarter of this year and what God has done. And I just want to point out one number to you guys, and we want you to take this with you so you can look at it. But since January, February, and March, we have had 3,325 salvations at Celebration Church. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely unbelievable. And what we know is that God is not done. And so you can email in your stories to goddidit@celebration.org. We want to know about what God is doing in your life. We want to know all about all the experiences and all the life change that has happened so we can capture it, because there's nothing better than telling the story of what Jesus Christ has done in our lives. Amen? And while we're at it, was last week Easter not ridiculous? I mean, at the 11:30 service, there were so many people that stood up to receive Christ. I had a friend walk up to me afterwards, and they were like, you should have seen your face. I mean, I was just like, it was one of those moments where you're still impressed with God, as if God's like, yeah, I still got this. You know what I mean? And everybody stood up in that moment. It was absolutely unbelievable. But what we're going to do today is we are going to continue in our series, We Are the Church, where we're going to look at what does it mean that you and I, that we are the church. And Pastor Stovall said something last week, and he's been saying it a few times, and honestly, I'd never thought of it the way that he said it. Pastor Stovall said, you know, the church is God's plan A. And I had never thought about that. I had never thought about that we as the church are God's plan A. And how many of you know that plan A is your masterpiece? Plan A is what you put all your work into. Plan A is what you spend all your time on. Plan A is what you work the hardest on. So because it is God's plan A, it is God's masterpiece. But the church isn't this building. The church isn't the chairs. The church isn't the lights. The church isn't the new land, the new building that we're building. Praise His name. The church is you and I. We're the church. Every one of us sitting in this room, we are the church. And so because you are the church, you are God's plan A, and because you are God's plan A, you are God's masterpiece. And so what I want to talk about this morning is the fact that you and I, every one of us in this room, that we are God's masterpiece. That there is not one of you in here that is not a masterpiece of God. And I know that for so many of us, man, even when we hear that, or even when we hear someone say that to us, that we don't feel that way. That we forget, or that we think, well, maybe, you know, someone else in this room is a masterpiece, or the person in front of me, or the person behind me, or the person sitting next to me, they're a masterpiece, or maybe no one in this room is even a masterpiece. You know, when you go and you stand at the edge of the Grand Canyon, now that's a masterpiece. Or when you're out in the ocean and you look and you see nothing but miles of ocean, now that's a masterpiece. Or you go and you look at things from outer space and you say, that's a masterpiece. And I think that for so many of us, we have such a hard time realizing the masterpiece that God has created us to be, but we have no problem at all looking at the other things that God has spoken into existence and saying, now that's a masterpiece. So what I want to do for a few minutes is I want to set up for you how much of a masterpiece you are. Now, if you've been around church for a while, you've seen these pictures. There's some pictures from the Hubble telescope. Louis Giglio preached this sermon a while back. I just want to show you a few pictures. And what we're going to do is we're going to compare. I want you to think about this the entire time. We're going to compare some things that God spoke into existence, but remembering that He made you with His hands. That He took the time to knit you together in your mother's womb, fearfully and wonderfully. You are His plan A. You are His masterpiece. These things we're getting ready to see, He just spoke them into existence. And we're going to compare a couple of facts about some things and then you. So if you would put this first picture up, and Jeff, if you would do like Bob Marley says and turn your lights down low real quick for me. I just want to show you these pictures. We're going to feel the mood. Everybody feel it's like we're going into outer space right now with Jeff turning down the lights. Still turning them down, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Ladies, watch your purses. I'm just playing. This first picture is a picture of the Milky Way galaxy. Now, this is the galaxy that you and I live in, okay? Scientists say that there are hundreds of thousands of other galaxies out there. They say that our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, has over 200 billion stars in it. If we were to count one star per second, it would take us 2,500 years to count the stars just in our galaxy. And this is something that came out of the mouth of God when he said, "Let there be light." And when light came traveling out the mouth of God and galaxies and universes and all of this stuff, it came out the mouth of God going 186,000 miles per second, because that's how fast light travels. And so we have to remember this, because this next picture that we're going to look at right here is a picture of the Pleiades. The Pleiades is 440 light years away. Now, a light year doesn't mean anything unless you know how far that is. So light travels 186,000 miles per second. Light in 1 year travels 5.88 trillion miles. So you go 5.88 trillion miles for 440 years, and this is what you come to. And these are the things that God spoke into existence. That God said, "Let there be light," and when he placed the stars, that these were the things that are out there. And I put this in here for two different reasons. The first one is because it's mentioned in Scripture. If you read the book of Job, Job had it very bad. Job had it probably worse than any of us have ever had it in our entire lives. In one day, Job loses everything. His land, his farm, his family, everything is killed. And then on top of that, Job's body gets covered in sores. And so then the whole chapter, the whole book of Job, Job is basically crying out to God, "God, why did you do this to me? God, why did you allow this to happen? God, how could you? How could you? Why, God? Why, God? God, I can't believe that you, God, did you? Why? And at the end of the book, God responds to Job. And the question that he asks, one of the questions that he asks, is, "Job, can you hold the Pleiades in your hand?" And Job says, "No, God, I can't." And God says, "Well, how could you possibly understand what it is that I'm doing?" Basically, God was telling Job, "Job, I'm so much bigger than you. Job, I know so much more than you. Remember that." The other reason I put it up there is because I have a massive tattoo of the Pleiades on my arm, much to the chagrin of my parents sitting in the middle section. "You could have just read the Bible," is all my parents were thinking. This next picture right here is a picture of the Sombrero Galaxy. This is 28 million light years away. You go 5.88 trillion miles for 28 million years, and this is what you come to. Remember this. This stuff is ridiculous, and this is amazing, and you can go to the HubbleSite.org and look at more of these pictures, and you will look at them, and you will be like, your mind just, you're like, what the heck? Like, how is that out there? He spoke it into existence. He just spoke it into existence. But with each and every one of you in this room, that God took the time to put you together with his hands. And I think it's so easy for us to look at those pictures and say, "God, that's a masterpiece. Man, our God is so amazing. Our God is so unbelievably awesome because he's able to speak that into existence." And we forget to look at ourselves. And so I want to tell you a few things about you. This picture right here is a close-up of the human eye. Your eye is the most complex computer that there is. It is unreplicatable by science. You are distinguishing every millisecond light, dark, height, depth, width, size, shape, color. Think about that. I mean, all of you can see right now my fly patent leather boat shoes. Pastor Stovall, take note. I'm still the fashion king. So you're doing that every millisecond. Hold on, let me get that thing back on. It's like plastic. It's like wearing plastic on my feet. You also, listen to this, you also have 1 million optic nerves that go from your brain to your eye, and they have to match perfectly or you don't see. And when I say perfectly, 1 has to match with 1. 210,412 has to match with 210,412. 316,410 has to match with 316,410, or you don't see. You are a masterpiece that has been made by the very hand of the living God. Every one of you in this room. Listen to this. You have 75 trillion cells in your body. You have 375 times the amount of cells in your body that the Milky Way has stars. 375 times. Each one of those cells, the simple cell that we learned in school, has 50 billion atoms. Each atom has hundreds of thousands of proteins. Each protein has hundreds of thousands of amino acids. If one thing is wrong, that cell dies. You are a masterpiece. You have 25 trillion red blood cells. They take oxygen from your lungs to the rest of your body. They live for 120 days. You have 25 billion white blood cells. They're what fight off infection in your body. They live for 12 hours. So since dinner last night, you have made 25 billion new white blood cells. In each one of your cells is your genetic code. Listen to this. This is what blows my mind. There will never be another you. In the history of the world, in the future, in the past, there is only one you. There will only ever be one you. There is you, and that's it. That's it. In each one of your cells is your specific genetic code. If you were to take one of your cells and unravel that genetic code that's inside of you, it would be 6 feet long. Now, if you were to take the 75 trillion cells that you have in your body and you were to line that 6 feet up, you have enough of you in you to go to the moon and back 20,000 times.